joining today for Ashbur's July webinar. My name is Amber Hines, and I'm the owner of Ashbur. We specialize in Medicaid compliant annuities and really Medicaid crisis cases to help clients qualify for Medicaid. We're very excited about today's webinar with attorney Julie Steinbacher. She's going to be talking about simplifying the Medicaid spend down process with AI, which appears to be a very hot topic based on the amount of people that have registered for today's webinar. I hope that you enjoy it. If you have questions during today's session, feel free to type those into the questions tab of the GoToWebinar dashboard. There should be a either a chat or a questions platform for you to type those in, and I will ask Julie those questions as they come up. So with that, Julie, I'll go ahead and hand the presentation over to you.
Thanks, Amber. It's always great to be here, with Ashbur, and just a great company, does a great job. And so really happy to be here and talk about this topic today. I am interested, before I just kind of jump interested in who in here is using AI and who isn't. So if you can put in the chat yes or no, whether or not you're, really using it or not using it. I would love that. So just a simple Y for yes, hey, I'm using AI, or no, not at all, or you could put a little. So again, if you enter that into the chat, I would really appreciate it because it helps me know how to have my comments. As indicated, I am a practicing attorney in Pennsylvania, and I also am the owner of the $1 Million Solution, which is a coaching group that helps people have the lives and practices that they desire. Today, we're going to talk about simplifying Medicaid with AI. And for me, I have started, my journey on AI started almost 3 years ago now, where basically I'm a member of ACTEC. And the state of Pennsylvania had an ethics opinion about the use of AI. And Professor Beyer was there and said, Julie, you're from Pennsylvania. Why don't you present on this at our next meeting? And at the time I thought, oh, better read it and better learn a little bit about AI. And that's really has started me on this kind of quest, if you will, for how do we use AI in our practices. And today I'm going to specifically be talking about the Medicaid spend down and how really that's transforming our practices. So I don't see anybody in the chat yet. Yes or no, whether or not you're using it.
There are a handful of people that have typed in that, yes, they are using AI. One person specifically says that they rarely are, and they're not using it for drafting or for planning currently. But there are about 8 or 9 people that have said, yes, they are using it.
That's great. And I see now it's in the question. So great. So, AI stands for artificial intelligence. And it's just software trained on enormous amounts of text and data to understand and generate language. You already use AI if you use Gmail's Smart Reply, Siri, or Google search suggestions. And that's really important that you know that most all of you are using AI in some form, maybe not for your practices. And AI, in elder law, it helps explain complex Medicaid rules in plain languages, draft checks lists, organize financial records. So just as an example, in my state, we have to list every check over $500. So you used to have to go through the statements individually. Now we can use AI to create those lists. We still do keep a human in the loop, and I'll talk about that more later. But I think that's important. It works best alongside experienced professionals, not in place of them. So it's interesting. When I started with AI, one of the first things I did was I used Copilot that was set just to look at my data, so my stuff, enterprise level that's paid for, not just a free thing that's putting things out on the the big data, sharing information. And I asked it to do a trust reformation, and I was like, wow. This is a great first draft. This is better than I get from a lot of my associates, right? And so I really, for a while, used it as that first draft. now I really see it more as like a colleague working beside me, and making me better at my job and better for our clients. And so I think that's important for people to realize and understand. So what can it do really for the families that we represent, particularly in Medicaid applications? People come to us confused, overwhelmed, and we've always done a great job of really helping them not feel as overwhelmed, not be as confused. They walk into our offices and, by the time they walk out, even for that first appointment, they usually have, felt more comfortable. But one of the things, every family is different, every person's different. The amount of information they need is really can be different depending on, uh, depending on whether or not, they are an engineer or, kind of more a conceptual type person. So one of the biggest uses that we've used for AI at our firm and across the board is explaining things to our clients. And later on in this presentation, I have examples of things that we've used to explain things to clients. And the idea of it is, taking a complex thing and making it into a chart or a one-page information sheet. That used to be a big task to say to my staff, okay, we want something that explains this to a client. So, a great example is, I don't know about you, but a lot of times we're asking for the Social Security verification, and often we get the wrong thing from the client. So then, asking AI to do a one-page sheet that shows here's what I'm looking for. So the family doesn't waste their time giving us the wrong thing. And so I think, being able to explain and clarify that really is helpful. And so, it can answer common what if questions, and translates complex legal concepts into terms that families really can act on. And so that explain and clarify, I think, is a good part of this. And that works, both for outwardly with our clients, but also for our staff. So one of our big uses at our firm, we use Copilot. It wouldn't matter. Some of you may use Claude. Some of you may use ChatGPT. Some of you may be using a combination. The first thing you want to know is that for anything you're using, it should be a paid-for subscription, enterprise level, that gives you that security. But I present a lot nationally with Linda Stroshine, and she uses Claude. I use Copilot. You can kind of do the same thing in either one of them. And so when I talk about things about Copilot, please know that you wouldn't have to use Copilot to do it, just what I chose to do at my office. Claude's going to provide you a lot of the same things. And one of the biggest things that we find in that explain and clarify kind of bucket here is also to our staff. So we have an agent at my office in Copilot. An agent is something that it helps us do recurring things, write letters, do research. And our agent is set to our policies and procedures. So what at Steinbacher, good all in your check, what are our policies and procedures? And then to look at the law that I want it to look at. So Pennsylvania law and the federal law that I want it to look at. And we can ask questions. We can put the whole resource manual in. So this is a great thing for helping our staff answer their own questions, coming to us with better questions. We use it in a state administration, again, our checklists, Pennsylvania Department of Revenue, IRS guidelines. So that explain and clarify, I think for some of you, you may have been like, yeah, that's not that big of a deal. I actually think it is. I actually think it's a huge deal. What I can say is the level of questions that I get from my clients is higher, and the level of questions I get from my staff is higher, both of which are good. And so we're able to respond to what people need to know and understand. So that's obviously one part of a Medicaid application, a huge part of it. Another part of it obviously is organizing and preparing. So, we all are thinking about, the clients that, used to bring in like a box of stuff and give it to us, or, us being able to, have certain information, but we need other information, or trying to get verifications of those types of things. And so, a huge part of using AI is creating a step-by-step checklist of documents needed for an application, and then being able to have that agent to tell us which documents do we have, which are we waiting for, being able to communicate that to clients. So a very simple agent can go in and say, okay, if I'm supposed to have these 20 things, I have 17 of them, and I need these other 3 things. But it also organizes and summarizes complex financial records before there's an attorney a review of them. And again, good example for my state in Pennsylvania, we need to know every check over $500. So we can use that. We can put that into AI, and we'll talk about the different platforms to do that. We can put that into AI, and it can spread me out a list, an Excel spreadsheet of here's the 25 checks over the last 5 years, and here's who they were made out to. That's a huge time saver. Now we do have to say, okay, well, can we rely on that? And honestly, at our office, we used Copilot, and we had inconsistent results for that. And so for financial things at our office, we actually use Oculus, which we find that it's more made for financial things, whether it's Medicaid applications or accountings. So we will tend to find that. We still keep a human in the loop, which means we still have a human verify what has been done. We are at the point where that verification is going quite well, and we could send it to the Department of Health and Human Services in our state without that, but you would need a disclaimer to say that this has been created by Oculus, and there is a human in the loop, or there is not a human in the loop. And that disclosure, just so you know, is really important, both court-facing, administrative agency-facing. It also does help our families arrive at our consultations informed and prepared. So we're more able to interact with them quickly and say, okay, I still need these 2 things from you. And so that's important. So there is a question I see here. How are we getting Copilot to tell us what documents we don't have? You would have to use an agent to do that. So an agent is something that you create in Copilot. It's not co-work, it's just within Copilot that we do for anything that's reoccurring. So if we have a checklist, we put the checklist in there. And if we have, whether we use SharePoint or wherever, NetDocs, wherever we keep our documents, we'd have it look at it and say, which of these documents are actually there and which don't we have? So any type of reoccurring thing, we would use an agent for. Sometimes with Claude, they're more called guides, but you would want to do that. So at my office, I have an agent that is a researcher. It looks just at what I want. It's not, again, this is different than being out on the internet and just doing a search there. I know there's AI there, but I want you to know this is very different because I'm telling it where to look. And some of it I'm telling it to look at my stuff. So a researcher, we have one that helps our staff learn how to do their jobs. Again, answer questions about Medicaid, write a letter, a form letter, how to do that. But this would be another use. Think about, for those agents, think about reoccurring things where we can give it some parameters. So at our office, we also use Copilot like to draft documents, powers of attorneys, for instance. But in order to do that, I have to be able to give it rules of the game. So I have to be able to give it a document that says, here, this is how it's supposed to be. And so that's important for people to be thinking about. Compare and estimate. I think this is also really helpful that we're able to compare long-term care options and estimates and potential costs. So again, maybe we're not right now at the Medicaid, but we're in like elder care navigation. We're trying to decide where placement should be. So we can use AI to really do those comparisons. Now, some of that is pulling information from the web, to say, how do these compare to each other? highlight differences in coverage, cost, and care levels side by side. I love it for it to go out and look at the CMS website. I don't know if you've ever been on CMS, and it's a great website. It has all kinds of information about, if I go to a nursing home, how likely am I to be discharged? That information is hard to find, but in this, you could use AI to do that side-by-side comparison. And again, all of this, I think it's not replacing us. It's allowing us to get the information faster. For me, sometimes personally, as an attorney, it allows me not to have to use the support staff and really use the AI to gather the information and data and put it into a process that I want. So I don't actually need to give that to a staff. And for me, that's also a timing issue. Sometimes I'm working on something and I ask somebody else to do something, and I have to wait a few days or a week for them to get back to me. I have to kind of get into it. Where now, if I'm working on something, I can just go ahead and do it myself. And so that's really helpful. So Brenna is also asking, do we have a good resources for building helpful agents? Yet the $1 Million Solution, we do help people build those agents for them, for our members, and for people who attend our AI events. Beyond that, I've heard from other people that, you need a coder or programmer. I encourage you just to get in Copilot yourself and go into and start to draft your own agent. One of the things I can say to you is that it's easier today than it was a year ago because it almost drafts itself for you. The most important thing is the instructions. And, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to provide in the materials, or if you emailed me, provide you some of the instructions that we use, because that's the biggest part of all of that for us to use. So another question is, did I use my time to create this all, or do I hire out? As far as what it goes, I'm not exactly sure what that means, but if you're talking about the actual Medicaid work itself, we do it in office, at our office. We don't hire it out or outsource it. There are ways to outsource some of this work, but we do this in-house. If you're asking if I'm using AI, I used AI for this presentation. But yeah, the biggest pain as far as figuring out what the different options are and stuff, we do that in-house at our office. Great questions. I love your guys' interaction. So what can AI do for your team? So one, draft educational contents, facts, frequently asked questions, client letters as a starting point for attorney review. I would say to you, historically, when somebody wanted like a one-off, I just would resist it. I'd be like, no, like here it is. Like now we're like, hey, yeah, sure, we'll send you a follow-up. I've sent more follow-ups that talk about their specific situation and have infographics, really easy ways to respond, because it's so much quicker and easier to be able to do that for clients. For intake and triage, so intake, as much as at my office, we're just about to start using an AI bot to answer the phones, and the neat thing is, like, they answer the phones and they ask the 8 questions that my staff is supposed to ask for intake, so we can decide where that appointment's supposed to go, and then get that appointment scheduled or moved over to the person who can schedule it. And that's working really, really well, better than I thought it would work, kind of amazingly. And so as far as intake, as far as summarizing and flagging any potential issues, so being able to have that information, getting me ready for a first appointment quicker, just be able to have it, look at it, and let me know, what's different here or any issues that I should know about. Triaging. So for many people, part of what that's meant is a client calls, they make an appointment, we call them back, we ask them a bunch of questions, we triage, we decide how important is this, how quick does this need to get in. And we still do it at our office, but more likely we're now having them fill out an online form There's many companies that provide those types of online forms. We use one that integrates with Action Step, and people really like that. They really like being able to not have to be on the phone with us, and just fill out the information when they have time, sometimes on the weekend. And so that's important for us to understand. Care coordination, really helping us to build those discharge timelines. So I know some of you, as part of Medicaid, don't maybe charge extra to do elder care navigation or like life care planning, but at our firm we do. It's a really pivotal part of what we do. And I would say to you, for you firms that don't, you're probably just giving away a lot of it for free. So part of the difference, at least in my mind, is that we don't wait for problems when we're proactive in it, rather than somebody's helping with a medical assistance application and clients keep asking you questions. Definitely for meeting prep, help staff prepare for client meetings by organizing information, suggesting topics. So, I have an AI agent in Copilot that is my client status update. So I can just run that. Like if somebody calls me, I just run that and it tells me, it updates me to exactly what the status of that file is, versus me having to read through everything. So again, there's an amazing amount of an ability, even with a Medicaid application, far and above just, the ruling part of, the financial part of all of that, and the collection of everything. That's really helpful. And increasing the client experience for our clients, which I think is wonderful. But then it also allows our staff to get a little bit of breathing room. So what our office, what's happened is we haven't let go of any staff, but we have staff who, instead of hiring new staff, those other staff can take more on. And it's amazing to me. We've actually seen it in our numbers where our staff has gotten more profitable and productive. Now, please know, I say all of this and beyond the scope of this topic, because it's just about Medicaid, but I think I'd be remiss not to talk a little bit about, we also had to make some improvements in our office. We had some computers that didn't work fast enough. We had things like switches and stuff like that had to be replaced, stuff I don't really know about because I don't do technology, but our managed service provider, which is the person that we use for our computers, technology, we really had to have a conversation with them about updates and upgrades that we needed within our system. Because if you think about data, going through a funnel, there's more data, so you have to make your funnel bigger. So for many offices that are on here, if you're not really using AI, when you start using it, there are going to be some investments and upgrades that you'll have to do. And sooner versus later for those, because everything is increasing in cost. Laptops are increasing in cost. Computers are increasing in cost. And that's because AI is pulling, AI itself is using a lot of the things that go into those computers, chips, processors, those types of things, which is driving up the price. So important for people to understand. So, this is like, it's kind of like this classic workflow, classically you'd have a binder for every client, and a binder for the binders when we're doing medical assistance applications, 23 browser tabs open, 3 on the same Medicaid PDF, maybe your calculator, your pencil, clicking out, like, please know I've done Medicaid spend downs for, more years than I want to say, right? And I remember, on a piece of paper, you figure it all out, and then we got to Excel, and sticky notes on your monitor, on your desk, on the cup of coffee that you have, thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, where did I save that? Where is it at? In my office, we actually just did a training about how do you properly save a document and name it. And 4 cups of coffee and it's only 10 a.m. and you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed. After AI, the upgrade, with using Copilot, we're using a prompt or some sort of an agent. We're having really much more instant calculations. So it's exciting too, because I can try more things and think about it. It's organized, cited summary. You have a document in about 4 seconds, so, my document where I want to know whether or not there's, checks that have been gifts to certain people, I can figure that out much quicker and easier. Have my coffee, enjoyed leisurely. One of the best things that I like about AI is when I'm using PowerPoint, I ask it to make me a slide, and it takes a minute or two. I can just sit and sip my coffee, and leaving our office by 5. So, before AI, we should say to a client, oh gosh, give me till Thursday. And now we're like, oh, just wait 30 seconds and I'll figure that out. And so I think the goal isn't to replace attorneys or our staff, but it is to replace that panic that we've all felt over the years and kind of overwhelm. And so, whatever, if, if that client's, deciding whether or not that client's vote is an asset, accountable asset, or, whatever that is. And so I think that's important for us to be thinking about. I added in here our AI privacy for the fee agreement. So this is our policy that we use, and we do use it in our privacy agreement also for our clients. So as a base, everybody here as an law office has to have an AI policy. This is the one that we use in our fee agreement, and we're saying to our staff, we're saying to our clients, we do use AI, and here's how we use it. I know everybody on here is from different states. I'm from Pennsylvania. In my state, I have a duty to disclose. I have a duty to competently use AI, and I have a duty to disclose it to my clients. Not every state is there a duty to disclose, but I do think it's our best practices. So the client comes in to my office and wants to say yes to services at my office. I have them sign this. This is in the fee agreement that says, yes, our office uses AI, and I point it out to them. Now, I will tell you, I've had some people who object to that. And we talk about that because we use it. We're not training. We're not taking any of our stuff and putting it out into those big data models. We're just using it for ourselves. And I talk about that and how we're protecting their privacy. And to be honest with them, I tell them that you shouldn't be concerned about my office. You should be concerned about the office that's not telling you about AI, because then they're probably using it and they don't even know it, which is really important for us to understand. This is also in our privacy policy. At our office, the first thing I showed you was our fee agreement. That would be any new client. We do have clients that come back that are kind of more review clients that we might not do a new fee agreement for. And so we do it with our privacy policy, because that's going to tell us who we're allowed to release information to. And so anytime a client comes into my office, we update that. So everybody's going to have to figure out within your system, how can you make sure this gets done? How can you make sure every time this gets done? Not in here, but I could provide also is our policy that we have for our staff, which is you're not allowed to use AI unless we give you a license, so something we've paid for. So that's important, because a lot of people with Microsoft, they have free AI, they have free Copilot. Your staff should not be using that. They should not be using that, and you should be telling them not to use it. You should have them sign something that shows that you told them not to use it, or ChatGPT or Claude or any of those things. So not everybody has a Copilot license at my office. I also talked about Oculus, which is something we use a lot for medical assistance applications. And again, only people who have licenses for that should be using it. They shouldn't be getting online with a free trial. So, attorney ethics, I don't want to get too much into this, but I think it's really important that if you haven't done any of this, this is kind of where you start. You start by having your policies. How are you going to use it? How is your staff allowed to use it? Then talking to your managed service provider about you know, what upgrades you would need to really be able to use it. And then pick one of the things I've talked about so far and decide what program you're going to use to do that. Again, we're a very Copilot office. We're very Microsoft Office oriented. Also, it's one less thing people have to open up. So, you know, when I use my email, Copilot's right there. When I'm in PowerPoint, Copilot's right there. So it's just easier for me to continue to use it for that. This I added in here. This is an example, you know, of something that was created very quickly with AI. And this goes back to the example of like explaining better to clients what we're doing or why we're doing it. And so this is something years ago we'd be like, oh, we need to do that for our clients. And then somebody would like draft it or work on it. And then we'd, you know, outsource it or have somebody create it in Canva, or we'd pay another company to create it. And this, there's like 4 of these just the other day that in about an hour's worth of time recreated, and they look wonderful. And we give them to the clients. Now, this is about a caregiver trust. This is about using trust assets to help pay for care. So kind of the opposite of Medicaid planning, but I think just important. I wanted to show you this because this is one of our more recent things that we've done that can really give you a flavor for, you know, how can you really up what you're showing to your clients moving forward. This is an example of another one, you know, protect what you've worked for. So this is more protector trusts or MAPS or, you know, any type of irrevocable income only trust that you'd be using to protect assets. And so, you know, again, something that we are just created very quickly with AI to give our clients. And again, this was created very quickly. It was given to me to review. I did make 2 changes that didn't quite use the right words, but that was able to be changed very quickly. And so, you know, just giving us an example of what we would want to put into that type of trust and how that works. And at our office, this is consistent with, you know, how we do things. It's very individualized to people. And so I think that's, you know, something that, you know, people can be thinking about doing. And this is one of those things that, you know, if other law firms are starting to do this and being able to respond to people quick and easy, you know, make something like this after an appointment versus some long letter that's a summary letter that nobody's reading anyways. You know, I think, you know, the law firms that are employing this are going to really get ahead of those law firms that aren't. So that, you know, it is definitely our competitive advantage for many of us. We're competing against Medicaid mills that I talk about, that race for volume. We can use AI to get deeper, not faster at the expense of quality. And so, you know, I don't know many of you, if you live in a place like I do, where a lot of the nursing homes are just, you know, not even referring to attorneys, but just referring to companies who are doing the medical assistance applications and, you know, really not doing a great job for clients. I had a friend of mine who, you know, went to her dad went to a nursing home, and the nursing home told her that she had to talk to the person, that she had to do it. Because she's my friend, she called me. I said, oh, no, you absolutely don't have to. And by the way, the information they told you about your dad's house is wrong. So I think for me, I'm also at my office using AI to combat against this by getting better information out there quicker. And so if we're able to use it to automate routine administrative tasks, that frees the attorneys for more personalized legal strategy in dealing with these things. I do think it helps with better coordination with financial planners, care managers, and medical providers. And again, I think that's that communication issues. Allows us for crisis planning, ongoing post-approval guidance, and estate protections that really require human expertise. So I think it allows you to get efficiency along with the judgment of experienced counsel. And I'm sure many of you and some of you on here are the staff that support those offices and are amazing professionals. and, do a fantastic job. I know at my office, the social workers that we have employed that help with the medical assistance applications, working with the families, are the brilliance and expertise of my firm. And so I think it really is allowing us, and those members of my firm are the people that have really engaged this, because they can see how they can do their jobs better, faster. And so that allows them more time to be, to have a better client experience. So, I will talk a little bit about Copilot. Again, you could use other things like Claude. You're going to see a lot of the same things, but it's embedded in our everyday tools. So when you open up, if you pay for a Copilot, when you open up your Excel, your Word, your Outlook, it's already in there, and it's not a separate app. And I think that's really helpful for our staff, embracing the use of AI. So I've been very positive about my staff embracing it, but please know that didn't happen overnight. I very systematically worked with my staff to ensure them, I wasn't firing them because of AI. They weren't going to lose their jobs, to assure them that, this is a change, but it's going to be worthwhile. So I could talk to you for an hour just about how do you get your staff to really be excited about this and engage in. Some of you on here might be staff, and I could talk to you the same amount to say, how do you get your bosses or, the people that you work for, or the attorneys to really also engage this. But change is hard. Change is hard for all of us. And so it's something we have to think about. Context aware and intelligent, and understands context across your inbox, calendar, and files to surface relevant information proactively. So, one of the things that when we're, in our email, and a client asks us this long question, historically, I would not answer that question via email. Historically, I would move them to a phone conference or tell them I'm happy to talk about that during a meeting. Now I actually might respond and have Copilot answer that email, because I can answer it quicker. Now, please know I'm still reading the response, but I'm able to, Copilot is able to read all of the email chain and give us a draft response. So it's different. Co-work is a newer part of Copilot. This does have an added cost. When we think about using a Copilot license or something like that, we're talking about $360 a year per license. When we add co-work, and the regular Copilot comes with the agents I was talking about, when we add co-work, there is an ongoing fee for how much you consume it. And so that's something that you need to understand. And it does do more. When we think about a senior assistant who reads through everything, forgets nothing, and drafts on demand, available around the clock, it's kind of how we can think of Copilot, or using AI for this, for us to be, making sure we're able to do that. We also have a Medicare planning agent. So this is definitely something that we haven't done as much of at our office. We've done more Medicaid, but often we've built a Medicare planning agent that connects to trusted, up-to-date knowledge sources. So again, this is not just out on the internet asking a question. This is, here's an agent, and I'm telling this agent where I want it to look. Only look at these sources. And then I can ask a question, and pulls official rules, premiums, plan finders. So we've really upped our game at our office in helping people with Medicare. And I think in this environment, that's really important, because I think a lot of times we've relied on Medicaid, and we could have gotten more stuff through Medicare. Like, I don't think we as a nation use the hospice and palliative care benefit enough through Medicare. And this is something we're going to have to deal with, as many states have lost funding for Medicaid waivers. Some states will keep those waivers, some states will not keep those waivers. And so we really want to make sure that we're able to provide more information about Medicare. So for me, there's AI happening, but then there's also this change in our country where we're losing funding for Medicaid and we're not sure. And so one of the things I want to be able to do at my office is do a better job of talking about Medicare and making sure we get all of the benefits we possibly could out of that. And so we're able to use an agent to kind of streamline what would have been a lot of research. So for individual clients, then we can use this agent to provide more information for our clients. So one question is confidential client information kept protected when using these tools? Yes, as long as they're set up correctly. So never use, and I know this is some generic things, I'd be happy to talk to you individually, but never use a free version of anything. Never think that just because you don't put somebody's name in there that you're protecting it. If you can, if you couldn't talk about it in a party, you can't put it into there. So if there's identifying information that people could figure it out, it doesn't work. So, I use Copilot that's paid for, that's enterprise level, that is not sharing information out on the large data models. Rather, it's using my 30 years of experience as its data model. So it's sharing information with the information I have. Clio work versus Copilot, great question. So Clio, just so everybody knows, is a practice management similar to like Action Step, but Clio has AI within it. And so there are things that you would not need to do with Copilot that you can use within Clio. And for me, that's a cost benefit analysis of, what is Clio co-work versus, getting Copilot. I think that's important for people to know. The other thing that's really important is the data. We talk about the data. Where is that data? So how do we access it? So if you have everything in Clio and you're really saving things in Clio and it's in there, you're sometimes better off to use that Clio work for status updates, things about the file, because that's already in there. What I don't know is how well Clio work can do all of the agent stuff I'm talking about. But I think that's a great question for you to be thinking about, and definitely that's important. Smokeball too is being asked about. So Archie and Smokeball works quite well. So that's one of the reasons when I speak with, I've not personally done it, but I've spoken enough with Linda Stroshine from Chicago. She uses Archie and Smokeball, and there are, again, things that I'm using Copilot for that you would not need to use Copilot for, but you would do the same thing applies with, Archie and Smokeball or Clio work. So you have to have an understanding of you have to divide up, is this reoccurring things? What is this agent able to do? But those agents might be more able to access the data to give you a better outcome, like a client update status finder. I need that in Copilot because I use Action Step, but you would not need that. So great questions. That's why it's a little bit different for everybody, individualized. You got to figure out where you're at to move forward with that. You would still need a Medicare planning agent like this. That's not going to be in there. So we think about, Copilot, how does it save us time every day? A client update letter saves a huge amount of time. It might take me a half an hour to do that. Now it's about 5 minutes, so I'm asking it to draft it. It's looking at the data. It's giving me a summary. I'm then reviewing that summary. Meeting prep summary. Again, would have taken me a while. But now after Copilot, it's literally minutes. Now I will tell you, I did a presentation Monday that was about using recording devices, Zoom, those types of things, where some of those meeting summaries are at. And that's another thing that you'd have to really look into. I'm not on here just endorsing that you can do that. The best bottom line I can give you is that based on the ABA guidance and guidance across bar associations, Claude is probably your best bet. And you need to get consent. But that's an oversimplification. A follow-up email, again, used to be that we hated that. I don't know about you, but I hated that. It's like, oh my goodness. But now, you know, I'm just asking it to respond, and it gives me a summary, and I know enough. I may have to check a few things, but I'm able to really do that. So it really frees up my time to work on the legal strategy and not an administrative overhead, or my paralegals and staff to do the same thing. And so some of my, I think the best staff, it's going to make them better, and it's going to make them more excited and engaged about their jobs. At least that's what it does at my office. Now, again, we're a year into this. It didn't happen overnight. Nobody was like, oh my God, this is fantastic, right? But now they feel that way. I talked about Oculus. So a great tool that we use for financial documents. I don't think anything else that we've talked about works as well. We did try other things that did not work well. Basically it's an AI document intelligent platforms that turns financial paperwork into clean, verified data, accelerating the reviews behind Medicaid applications. So it's designed for the financial industry. The nice thing about Oculus is they do great training with your staff. We're having some issues with it right now, and they're right there helping us. And so that's great. We still do have a human in the loop. That means that once we use Oculus to provide the information, we have a human go back and verify it. Still saves us a lot of time. It's really built for lenders and fintech. Our firm applies it to document analysis capable to Medicaid financial reviews, but also we also use it for accountings. We use a lot in our state administration also. So kind of those forward-facing things. So how we do this, we do bank statement analysis. So it takes months and months of statements into clean cash flow data, so we can trace transactions back. I'm working on one right now. It's not Medicaid. It's an accounting for a trustee. Very quick and easy, able to do that. Document integrity checks. It looks for altered pages, missing pages, inconsistencies. Income and asset verification, it can identify that across pay stubs, tax returns, 1099s, can just pull that information out. And so important. We really think it's worked the best for us, for doing this. One of the questions is, do we always require 5 years of financial statements? We always do it as good measure, so that we know that the client's not telling us stuff, so we don't necessarily take a client telling us, oh no, there's not been any gifting. We want to know. We look. So again, this was created by AI itself. So this is a picture that was created by AI itself, and this is what elder law what AI thinks we do for a living, and it's not wrong. We've been covered with paper, and particularly when we're talking about a Medicaid spend down, it can seem overwhelming, the amount of information and paper that we have to review, organize, summarize, and send into the Department of Health and Human Services, or whatever it's called in your state, in a timely manner. And I think the idea with AI is that it helps us not feel like this. The work is still there to be done, but it's definitely a big help with the Medicaid applications. Also, a huge issue in most law firms, this is a 2024 research finding, is that many phone calls, whether people realize it or not, go unanswered in law firms. So nearly 40% of law firms answered incoming calls in a 2024 study. 60% send callers to a voicemail or no answer. Firms that respond within 5 minutes convert dramatically higher rates. So if you're putting marketing out there and you're not answering your phone or not being able to get people to make an appointment, you're really losing out on those marketing dollars or those leads. For Medicaid, elder law itself, but particularly Medicaid, a delayed response can mean a family in crisis chooses another firm. Every unanswered call is a family that might need help. And that's why at our office, we are definitely using an AI agent to do that, not to replace everybody, but to pick up the calls other people can't get to on any given day. And I'm amazed at it. I think it actually does a better job because it's following a script. It's amazing. I have a staff of 70, and I called it and said, "Hey, I'm a daughter, and my dad has dementia," and it asked me the questions, and it said, "You need to talk to Sam." And you know what? It's right. I should talk to Sam at my office. And so that worked quite well. And so we tried about 3 different places. So we're using Adam Williams right now I see a question in there. I'm happy to share, any of who we use for this. So it answers the phone in seconds, captures the caller's name, contact information, type of call, routes urgent calls to crisis planning, hospital discharges. And so there's no black holes. After hours calls receive a prompt. And they're transcribed and reviewed by the staff. The agent does not give any legal advice. So important. We basically at the $1 Million Solution do provide training and help with this. We do it in what we call an immersion type setting where we have firms come in together and really make decisions, figure out where they're at, make decisions, and really start like in a lab implementing things, doing their agents, doing those types of things. We don't think this is something that really lends itself to going to a seminar and going home and saying, okay, I have to figure out how to do all of this. So we have different types of interactive workshops, demonstrations, small group format, and our next AI immersion is coming up in October. So we had one in May. It was very well attended. And so that's something that, if you want more information, you can do that. And so at our next event, we will deal with helping you get your personalized AI, your own unique preferences. So there's great questions today, like, you already have Smokeball. How do you use that? You already have Clio. Should you be using Client, Copilot? Should you be using Claude? Everybody's situation is different. What you don't want to do is you don't want to use 5 different things, pay for 5 different things, and never go deep with one of them. And so that's one of the big things you want to do. We also do hands-on. So really, let's just build the agent right here, right now. And clarity on the role of AI and its limits, and understanding where it helps, where it stops, and where your attorneys or staff remain the most important resource in Medicaid and estate planning, moving forward. And that's really, really important for people to know. We also have instituted a 10-week course. There's a QR code there if you're interested in this course. It's $14.97 for this 10-week course. As many people at your office as you want can attend. It's every once a week for an hour. And it's a learning lab where we're going to learn the basics. So we have an AI immersion coming on, but if you're kind of new to all of this, we'd hate for you to attend that and not get a good amount out of it. We would rather that you start with a 10-week course immediately. It did start last week, but for anybody who signs up and wants to do it, we would have a personal one-on-one catch up with you. So we'd figure out where you're at, how to get you started moving forward. So again, that information is just there in the QR code. You're welcome to use that QR code to register for that. At the immersion, so again, we have an online course right now to help people right now, once a week. We also have our AI immersion 2.0, which is October 19th and 20th in Boston, Massachusetts. Basically the investment for that is 5 monthly payments of $350. And if you want to do both, you can talk to Dom Lafredo at my office, and he'll talk to you about if you're ready to do both, how does that work? You really can't do AI 2.0 without either having went to 1.0 or doing the course, because we want people that are there already. Amy's asking if we'll be doing the course again. We have no plans to do the course again. We probably will, because unfortunately, AI is not something where you can just have people watch recordings. It changes. It's changing all the time. So I'd encourage you to jump on to the course. If it's something you couldn't start for a couple of weeks, we could certainly talk about, you know, something to get you caught up, you know, as you move forward. So just putting in the chat. Dom Lafredo at the $1 Million Solution. He's on vacation this week, but he's the one that can talk to you about it. I also put my own email in the chat since he's on vacation this week. I don't always have all of the details, but I can certainly conceptually talk to you. And particularly if there's something you asked for today, I'm happy to share that with everybody moving forward. So if you go through the course, you know, you've built a foundation. We really want to put that to work. So, you know, joining our AI immersion, again, it's not just a time for another overview. We want to integrate into daily workflows, scale across your team, improve your client experience, measure your ROI. That's the thing at my firm. We know the ROI. We know we're getting our return on investment. And that's exciting. And, you know, we didn't in the beginning, we tried a lot of things that didn't work. We tried a lot of things before Oculus that didn't work. But, you know, we now know what we think works moving forward. I do think it's important that everybody measures your return on investments, and so you can make better decisions, understand what to track, what matters, how AI impacts capacity, responsiveness, and your profitability. We do want to improve intake and the client experience at our office. We knew that we needed to reduce our cost of our intake. We did a really good intake for people, but it cost a lot of money. And so we've been able to streamline that with AI. And so it really strengthens that front door welcome to our office. We're not using AI to replace humans. We're using it to accentuate and make it better. So again, we're not answering the phones. We also know sometimes, you know, moving forward. So we're having a question, and I'm sure that Amber can answer this. Are they able to get a copy of this recording? I would assume so, that it's available through Ashburn on their site, but I don't know if you can, you know, move that
yes,
forward.
well, it will be up on our website as well as our YouTube page later today.
Okay, great. I assume so, but I didn't want to answer for you. And get found in the AI-driven world. You know, we're up against the clock as far as time, but you know, AEO, which is a new SEO, you know, answer engine optimization, is definitely something everybody needs to be looking into. And we wanted to, you know, move that forward. So when is the last time to sign up for the immersion? You know, please know, it typically last time the AI 1.0 sold out. So if you're interested, I encourage you to just let Dom know, and he can put you on the list. And I encourage you just to have a conversation with him about that. It is not sold out right now, but our first one did sell out, because we keep the numbers smaller. So that we're able to really make sure everybody there gets what they need. And for some firms, they'll bring more than one person with them. So again, this is where AI becomes a part of how you operate. It's certainly a part of how we operate at our firm. It's something I've talked about extensively on. I did the pre-day for NALA in Milwaukee with some other people, Audrey and Jennifer and Linda. We've had our AI immersion. So we're here to help. Certainly, I always appreciate being on here and want to make sure, if you took the time to be on here, that we give you as much information as possible. So if there is something that you ask for, I certainly can push that on to Amber, so that she's able to share that with all of you. I think it's an exciting time with AI. I'm excited about what it can do to our practices. I also know that those firms that ignore it are going to be left behind at some point in time. It will be hard to compete with firms who are employing it. I think the biggest thing is if you're on here and you haven't used it, please start with telling your staff that they're not allowed to, please, so you don't get into any ethics trouble. But thank you everybody for being on today. I really enjoy it. And thank you again, Amber. I enjoyed this.
Yes, thank you, Julie. And our August webinar is going to be kind of a continuation of this topic. Julie or somebody at Million Dollar Solution is going to be presenting on training your staff on AI. So feel free to join that webinar as well. And we had one last question here, Julie, about what day and time the course is that you're discussing, the 10-week training.
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me look. I think it's on Wednesdays at noon. Yeah, there is Wednesdays at noon Eastern.
Okay.
So it's every Wednesday at noon Eastern.
Perfect. Thank you, Julie. And we will talk to you next month on training your staff.
Fantastic. Thank you. Have a good day, everybody.